Go. Jai Jagannath, here we are with the Bhagavad Gita study, chapter 8, verse 8, we did last time. O son of Prita, by engaging in the practice of yoga with a focused consciousness that does not deviate from the object of meditation, one attains the Supreme Being on whom he has been meditating, which is the real point of meditation. Then next. 9. Okay, this is how we should meditate on God. But according to Krishna, not according to me. One should remember the Lord as the omniscient, the primeval who controls everything, so small that is contained inside the atom. He maintains everyone and everything, and his form is inconceivable, as bright as the sun, transcendental to darkness, which darkness also means ignorance. So why we I translated as omniscient. In fact, the word in the verse is kavim, the poet. The kavim means poet and scholar, but that means one who knows everything. Actually, the kavi is much more poetic, but probably, it can go lost on lots of people. Puranam, Anusasitaram, no, smaller than the atom. Okay. Let's see. This is Bhagavad. The interesting thing is that the form of Bhagavan is inconceivable. Means it's not a material form. This is very important, because when people see the form of God and they think it's a material form, they are not looking at God. They're looking at a material form. That's another thing. Okay. And 10. One who, at the time of death, remembers the Lord without any distraction of the mind, with devotion and powerfully connected to yoga, and perfectly keeping the prana between one's eyebrows, attains that divine or radiant supreme person. So this is moksha. We have to attain this level of being conscious of God, focused on God, before death comes. Otherwise, at the time of death, we think about so many other things, and there will be a lot of distractions. And we go 11.
But isn't it difficult that Krishna is saying which is inconceivable and simultaneously meditate? How can we meditate on something which is inconceivable?
Very good. I like this question. It's a very good question. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. We meditate on the knowledge, but we have to remember that the form of God is beyond our experience, our intellectual experience, our logical experience. We meditate on the instructions of the Shastra, that say that God is smaller than the smallest and bigger than the biggest. This is inconceivable, because like what? Either it's small or big. Just tell which one. But at the same time, this cannot be understood intellectually, but it can be understood spiritually. When we meditate, it's not just our mind that is focused, it's our consciousness. The Atman is consciousness. The Atman, is Sat Chit Ananda. So the consciousness of the Atman is much more powerful than the intellect, the understanding, the mind. When we speak of achintya, inconceivable, we mean that it cannot be understood by the mind. Why? Because the mind is material. The mind is one of the material elements, you remember. But the Atman is beyond the mind. So, of course, in order to find, to recognize, to realize our transcendental consciousness as Atman, we need first to control our mind. Because the mind is a constant distraction from the natural knowledge. It's a superimposition. Mind keeps bringing lots of stuff that has no use. Some things are useful, but most of the things that the mind is bringing us are not useful. And especially, they're not transcendental. Is that clearer? Does it help?
Yeah.
But I know it's not easy to understand, because when we understand, again, we are using the mind. Now, we have at some point to drop the attachment to the mind, the identification with the mind. And this is why in the Dasa Mahavidya we see the Chinnamasta that is going around without a head and keeping her own head in her hand. Because attachment to the mind is also a form of attachment. Now, sometimes we have what we call intuition, inspiration. You remember having had some of these. That you realize something suddenly without following a logical process. Everyone has experienced something like that. Do you remember how it is? Okay.
No, I'm not able to recollect anything which without
Okay.
the mind.
You're an
Mind is
intellectual.
always there.
You're an intellectual. Okay. Let's see, for example, you are looking for your car keys. You have a car?
Yes.
Okay. So, you're looking for the car keys, and you have no idea where you put them. Now, you stop thinking about the car keys, and you go do something else. You relax, and suddenly your subconscious is popping up with the memory where you put the car keys. It was
Yeah.
not a logical, intellectual process. We can say it's spontaneous. In this particular case, usually is coming from the subconscious. By definition, we are not conscious of what is happening in the subconscious. So we have no control. The subconscious is coming up and popping up with stuff. We need to integrate, recover the connection, and integrate the subconscious with our conscious mind, because in this way all our inner conflicts will be solved. And 98% of the problems of people are due to inner conflicts. Because we want something and our subconscious wants something else. You follow?
Yes.
So, beyond the subconscious, we have the superconscious. The superconscious is not a part of our mind. Is a connection with directly it's the Atman. In the Upanishad it's called the Turiya, the fourth state of consciousness. That is totally transcendental. It has nothing to do with the conscious or even the subconscious mind. But the subconscious mind is more in contact with the Atman than the conscious mind, normally, usually, in ordinary people. So what we do when we practice yoga, meditation, we have these 8 steps, the yama niyama that usually the yoga teachers conveniently forget about. Yama niyama, one of the items is svadhyaya. Svadhyaya means studying oneself, by oneself, which refers both to the direct study of the Shastra and to the study of our own self, like the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, the Atman. All this is part of the Svadhyaya, because we have to observe. We need to become aware. The first thing that we become aware of when we start meditating is how much the mind is constantly chattering. When you start meditating, okay, now after yama niyama you start with asana, pranayama, and then you arrive to pratyahara, which means you withdraw the senses, from the external objects. But then we still have internal objects, because the mind keeps bringing us stuff. So after becoming expert in pratyahara, we have to become expert in dharana, which means to keep the mind still. Just like we keep the body still and we keep the prana still, we have to keep the mind still. So there is no fluctuation, no disturbance. How we keep the mind still? Usually through mantra. The mantra japa is the best sadhana, especially in Kali Yuga, because the mantra is extremely effective in keeping our consciousness. So when you start the sadhana with the mantra, the Maha Mantra, you realize how restless your mind is, how untrained your mind is. Because it's coming and dropping stuff all the time. And then there you are thinking about your next vacations. There you are thinking about what you're going to cook tomorrow. There you are thinking about, the kids have to do the homework. They're just all things that are generally maybe even useful, but they're not what you want your mind to think about when you're meditating. So this is called the witness meditation. Means we become aware of the condition of our consciousness because we witness whatever the mind is coming and going and bringing and dropping and taking back and bringing back, whatever, without attachment. As a witness. Because you realize you're not the mind. Most people don't even realize they're not the body. So, after realizing you're not the body, realizing that you're not the mind is the next big step. Are you following that? Okay,
Yes.
good. So, now realizing what the mind is doing is called psychology. Now, yoga has a very precise and vast and complete and deep knowledge of psychology. It's a very scientific knowledge of psychology, which the mainstream, we can say Western, but it's not really Western, academic system doesn't even begin to understand. Actually, the science of yoga is many times more scientific than anything that you can learn at any university today. So, through the science of yoga, we come to understand our mind and the difference between the mind and the consciousness. The difference between the mind, intelligence, and the sense of identity. Manas, buddhi, ahankar. And we learn to understand the difference from the state of consciousness, that is the awakened state, the waking stage, the dreaming stage, the sleepless dream stage, and the transcendental stage. That refers to the consciousness, not to the mind. Consciousness and mind are two different things. This cannot be understood by mainstream psychology you study at university, because they don't know what we are. Still, in the present university, psychology is still, running on the idea that we are the body and we have a mind. Now, Abrahamic say that we are a body and we have a soul, and post-Abrahamic non-religious people, like in science religion, they say that we are a body, and the elements of our body, by biochemicals and whatever, produce what we call mind. And we see, because the soul does not exist, the consciousness is just, for them, is just a combination of chemicals. And this is why you go to the psychiatrist and they give you medication. What is the medication going to do to your mind? Nothing, but nothing good. It will just mess up with your body. But the mind is not going to become healed. You see how it's working.
Yes.
So, if we understand the difference between the mind and the consciousness, then we understand that God is achintya, in the sense that cannot be understood by the mind, but it can definitely be understood by the consciousness, because we are consciousness. We are of the same nature and substance of God. So consciousness can easily understand consciousness. I don't know if it's clear enough, because this is important.
The realization and theoretical comes to
Exactly.
that.
That's exactly why the intellect is not sufficient. Exactly. This is the perfect example. I can understand it because I see it, I realize it. That's why it's called darshan. The rishis are just seeing things think the knowledge as it is. They don't have to go intellectually through the knowledge. They perceive it directly. Now, let's make another example. You have probably seen those pictures that have a double meaning. You know, like in the same picture you can see a head of a horse or a frog. You know, depending on how you see it. Have you had this experience?
Yes, yes.
Okay. In any case, I'll try to find one example online and put it on the, as a picture. So, what makes you see the other image? Usually, when you start looking at one of these pictures, you can only see one image. And then something switches on. That is why it's called enlightenment, prakash. You know, it's not manas, it's buddhi. That buddhi is, connected to the consciousness. It is not consciousness. Buddhi is not consciousness, but it's connected to the consciousness. So something switches in your consciousness and you actually see both images at the same time. If you try to explain this process to someone else, they will not understand logically, because how can you see two pictures, two images? It's the one picture only. You understand? And why, the other person cannot see both pictures? It's not something that you can explain. It's a natural mechanism that is tapping directly into the consciousness. It's a paradigm shift. So this is also connected to the mind and the buddhi and the sense of identity, but it's not limited to those. It goes beyond. It actually comes from the consciousness. Like, let's say, the conscience. Okay, so you know what conscience means. It's something that inside yourself can tell you what is good and what is bad. Right? That's called conscience. Where does it come from? Is that an intellectual process? No. Because immediately you feel it. A child can see if you're hurt and you cry. The child immediately can understand that is bad. You're hurting and you're crying. You don't need to explain anything. There is no logic to required to understand that. An animal can see that. A dog can feel when you're sad. It's not just your facial expression. It's your feeling that the dog is feeling. And the dog can correctly interpret the facial expression without a logical process, without an intellectual process. It's a feeling. Sometimes it is called the heart, although it has nothing to do with the anatomical heart. But is the transcendental feeling, energy, the consciousness that makes you feel things. And this is the basis of bhakti. Bhakti goes beyond the intellectual level. This is why, yes, you can remember that Krishna is God, that Krishna is Paramatma, that Krishna is this, Krishna is that. But when you have developed pure bhakti, you don't care that Krishna is God. You understand? You have that,
Yes.
general idea. You remember Krishna's God? Yeah, of course. You see, the gopis were talking about Krishna, and they were reenacting all the dancing poses of Krishna, of Vishnu, all the avatars. So that means the gopis are somehow conscious that Krishna is Vishnu. But they don't, they're not attached to the logical, intellectual idea that Krishna is Vishnu. Because their heart, their love for Krishna, their feeling for Krishna, their attachment to Krishna, puts all the logic and intellect aside. We can experience that not only on the spiritual level, but also on the material level sometimes. So like for example, a mother that sees that the child is in immediate danger, because the car is coming and the child is in the street, and what does the mother think? No, she doesn't. She's just reacting. It's a heart that is pushing her into action. She's not thinking about the consequence. She's not thinking about anything. She's just jumping in the street in front of the car and grabbing the kid and taking him away. You understand the difference?
Yes.
That's consciousness. Because you become conscious that your child is in danger, and then the consciousness is pushing you. And the intellect doesn't have much to do with it, unless your intellect, as the waking stage, the conscious mind, is so well connected with the subconscious and with the superconscious that at that time you can even think. You can immediately jump into action, but you calculate your jump precisely so that you can get there before the car and get out before the car. You see the point? So consciousness and mind should work together, ideally. But the consciousness doesn't need the mind necessarily. So this is why we meditate on God, but we are not trying to understand God logically. When we meditate, our consciousness is focused. Not the mind is just supporting the consciousness. It's not the mind that has to do the job. The mind just has to be quiet. So that the consciousness is not disturbed. Of course, you can train your mind to do some exercises but when you actually want to meditate on the Atman, Brahman, Paramatman, Bhagavan, the mind is not required. The mind should just be quiet. Just like when you're meditating, you don't need the body. You still have a body, you don't need it. It's just the body will be quiet. So in the same way the body should be quiet, the mind should be quiet. So you can directly access the consciousness, which is you. You become conscious because you are consciousness. You understand? This is why it's said in transcendental. It's inconceivable because it doesn't go through the material intellect. Material intellect can help in supporting our meditation, but ultimately material intellect and the mind have to be like the the Dwarapalas, the gatekeepers that keep all the disturbances outside so that you can actually focus on your own meditation. You understand the example?
Yes.
You know, the Dwarapalas are there at the door. They don't come inside and do anything. You know, they're just there at the door and keep, you know, all the disturbances outside. Keep them off. You know, keep send the distractions back, you know, and don't let them get into your consciousness. So you are the consciousness. You are the king of the city of the 7 doors, 9 doors. Right? So that's how it works. The mind will learn through the study of the Shastra, through the examining, the analysis of, you know, the things that are in the mind. But that's a limited job. Cannot go beyond that, because the mind is a material element. Is that clear enough?
Yes.
Fantastic. Any other question about this?
Yeah, clear.
Shoot. No other question, or you have other questions?
No, no, no question. No question.
No other questions. Okay. Then we go again. I will tell you a summary about the imperishable goal destination described by those who know the Veda. That destination is entered by the great sages, sannyasis, who have become fully detached from material illusion and who practice brahmacharya with the purpose of attaining that destination. What is the brahmacharya of this we need to understand. Brahmacharya means behaving like Brahman. Brahma achara. What does achara means? What does achara mean? Behavior, right?
Yeah, your acharan, what
Huh?
your behavior.
Yeah, behavior. Exactly. So Brahma achara is the behavior of what? Of the Brahman,
Yeah.
right? What is the behavior of Brahman? This is very interesting, because lots of people, you know, they have a lot of confusion in their mind about the meaning of brahmacharya, and they think that a brahmachari is someone who hates women, you know, that is very rigid, like a Taliban, you know, something like that. No, brahmachari has nothing to do with celibacy or abstinence. Brahmachari is someone who behaves as Brahman because his consciousness is focused on the Brahman. So he knows that he is Brahman. He knows that everybody else is Brahman. So naturally, if you see everything through the spiritual transcendental vision of Brahman, you don't identify yourself as a body. You don't identify other people as bodies. So what you see souls. You see persons, spiritual persons. You know, and when you see spiritual persons, you don't think about sex. Like, for example, you know, when you're a child, you don't think about sex because you just, you know, you don't see people as bodies. You know, you see people as people. You can recognize the difference between your mother and your father, but that's not an important difference because there is no categorization. It's very simple. You just interact with people from your same perspective, from your same identification. You see other people as non different than you, which is actually the correct approach to Brahman. Because, why? Not because the children are more evolved than grown-up people, but because they're not so identified with the body yet. So when a child is sent to the Gurukula at the age of 5, when he's still a child, he's trained, is taught properly and trained properly by the Guru to keep this perspective of Brahmacharya, behaving like Brahman. You see, everybody is a part of the Brahman. You understand how it works? Now, of course, when you become older, you get into puberty. Then you'll have, you still, maybe you don't have any urge yet, but, the body starts to push. So if you don't know what's happening, you might be just confused, But if you know what's happening, you know that it's the body and the senses that are trying to go after the objects of the senses because they have a biological impulse. But if the Guru explains all these things to the students in Gurukula, the student will remain in the Brahmacharya position even when he marries and he has children and on and on, because he still knows that he is not the body and the wife is not the body, but he knows that the body is doing things like Krishna is saying, a Sthita Pragya, whether he sleeps or wakes up, opens and closes the eyes, accepts or rejects or, eats or do anything, is still aware that all these activities are performed by the material body, the material senses, and the material mind. So he doesn't identify with those actions. So, if he has the proper knowledge, he will perform those actions on a level of sattva, to take care of the body properly, to perform the duties that are connected to that body, and this is how we can remain on the level of liberation, a level of brahmacharya, irrespective of our position in family or society. So, those who know the Vedas, who have become fully detached from material illusion. What is detachment from material illusion? What is detachment? Vita raga. Raga is what? Attachment means ahankara and mamattva. So, we become detached from attachments. Attachments to objects and attachment to beliefs, attachment to what we think we are. It's become fully detached. This means we practice brahmacharya. We are always careful to see people as Atman Brahman. So we can do any work. This is the real sannyasi. Like Krishna said before, the real sannyasi is not someone who doesn't, kindle the fire and does not perform all the duties, does not cook the food. The real sannyasi is someone who is doing whatever he needs to do, but with detachment, without being identified or attached to the actions. Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phalesu kadachana. So we can do our duty, and still be detached. It's not impossible. We can do that. Is this clear?
Yes.
Any questions? Okay, maybe they will come later. Then we go. Next. And then we come to the doors. 12. Chapter 8, verse 12. Controlling all the doors of the body, keeping the mind within the heart, and fixing the prana, carrying the self, to the top of the head, one is situated in the yoga meditation. Okay. Now, controlling all the doors of the body, we know we have 9 doors. Okay. The city of the 9 doors is the human body. How you control the doors? Because the mind is trained to such an extent that it watches, and mind is the Dwarapala, is the sentinel, the sentry, staying, it is there at all the doors of the body and watching what's happening, So the mind can control the senses, right? But the Atman is controlling the mind. Keeping the mind within the heart, it means we are talking about chakras here. And fixing the prana to the top of the head. So the heart chakra is the anahata chakra, where we have the consciousness, the awareness of Brahman, which means we are all one. We are all connected. So, of course, you feel love and benevolence, karuna and maitri, you feel compassion to all, towards all, including yourself. So this is the heart chakra. And the Sahasrara chakra, which is the top of the head, the crown chakra, is a transcendental consciousness. So your consciousness is both in the Brahman, within this world, on the Virat Purusha, because all beings, all existences are part of the Virat Purusha. So we have love and devotion and feeling of service, connection through the Virat Purusha, but we are keeping our consciousness on the transcendental level, because we don't see the Virat Purusha as material. We actually see the Virat Purusha as Krishna, as Vishnu, as Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavad. So the Virat Purusha on the material level is something that appears and disappears. So we go higher than that. We go to the Sahasrara chakra to maintain our consciousness on the transcendental level. The Anahata chakra is not transcendental yet. It's still being compassionate to all beings. Beings are material beings. Because the Atman doesn't need compassion. The Atman is perfect. Sat Chit Ananda. Why should we be compassionate to the Atman? There's no need. But we are compassionate to the embodied beings. Even if they don't have a physical body, they just have a mental body like the ghost, but still they have a material body. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Questions?
It's all theory only for me.
I know. But theory is the first step, right? Without theory, how can you get to the practice?
Yeah, true.
You cannot just jump into the practice without having at least theoretically understood what you're going to do. But of course, there will be a jump. There will be a leap. And that is called prakash. When you get there, everything is clear. There's no effort to try to understand, because you see it is like that. It is, how can people not see it? You understand? So it's okay, We get there through sadhana. We get there through sadhana. Sadhana basically means regulated effort. Like when Krishna explains how to control the mind by constant practice and detachment. So we are now reading Gita because most people don't even know what Gita says. They recite the Gita, but if they don't understand what they're reading. So but they don't even make an effort to understand. So you are already much more evolved than most people. Most people are a bit foolish, especially in Kali Yuga. The Bhagavad Purana is a Manda Sumanda Matayo, Manda Bhagya. In Kali Yuga, people are really stupid. So, we do our best. Definitely, Krishna will help you. Param Guru will help you. You are already making a very good effort, so definitely you'll get the good results. We need a little patience, determination, enthusiasm, which you have. So, rejoice. It's okay. We'll keep working. We'll keep working. Don't worry. Anything else on the subject?
Mm.
Okay.
But it is all
Now,
like, people like you who are guiding. I don't have any qualification of my own.
no, 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 no. Don't say that. Don't say that. You are Sachidananda. Don't identify. Because the identification with material elements is what is keeping us down. Don't never say you're not qualified
Mhm.
because you are Sachidananda. You're perfectly qualified. It's actually you're perfect. You just have to realize it. It's
Mhm.
not something that you have to achieve. You just have to drop the luggage. To wash away the material conditionings, which is something that we are doing. No problem. Okay, I think we can stop here for the recording. And we start again with
Okay.
verse 13 next time. Thanks for giving your time and energy and sincere support to this work.
Thank
And
you for giving your valuable time.
Jai Jagannath. Okay.